How are you? Welcome to Critical News of Telesur. From the present and the future of Kosovo is what we're talking about today. To what point is the government going to? What are the maneuvers after the professor of economy is now the minister? How are the political forces represented in the parliament? What are many countries pushed to have them at the side of recognizing this territory?
After the independence of Serbia, is United States, what is the position of the United States in all of this? How does the Balkan chess go on throughout the job? Let's analyze this. The new government of Kosovo, led by Abdullah Hoti from LDK, informed after the falling of the new president, in the midst of the challenge that the pandemic of COVID-19 implies, and to extend these relations. This was preceded by some questioning about the cabinet. Let's listen to some reactions. We have overcome all of the obstacles, and for a decent time we have given them an opportunity. With our organization, we have a decision to overcome the obstacles in the line with the promises that we have made to our international allies. We hope to see the same thing from the Serbian side. We also preserve our rights to maintain all of the actions and our sovereignty, along with our international allies. It's a good decision that all of the restrictions are lifted, both of commerce between Pristina and Belgrade. I think that the power of the Belgradean companies can bring good relations from which both parties can benefit. I thank the compromise of the Prime Minister to go through with the long-term commitments and the Kosovo objectives. He also wants to continue the dialogue in a spirit of cooperation and coordination with everybody. What they promised us during the election and what's happening now is something totally different. We have to go to elections. If they want something else, they have to ask us. We are the citizens who say what we want. They should be ashamed of themselves. They want to steal even more. This is shameful. Nobody really cares about the citizens. Just when they ask for our votes, and then they forget about us. Let's go over who is part of the new government of Kosovo. At the beginning of this month, a new government was set in place that was led by Abdullah Hoti. The parliament that was conformed by 120 seats have accepted the coalition leadership of Kosovo, of an LK, along with other organizations.
Del ex primer ministro Ramush Haradinaj, la socialdemócrata Nisma y el Partido de la Minoría Serbia. En cuanto al reparto de los 16 ministerios,
16 ministries, a minister in defense will be directed by the LDK. Foreign affairs will be of AK, and the servant minority will take over the other ones. His priorities are centered in the fight against the COVID-19, recovering the economic growth, and to go through with the economic community, to try to be part of the economic community of Europe. The dialogue with Belgrade had been installed in 2011 under the auspice of the European Union. However, ever since 2018, they're at a dead point. For this reason, one of the first measures was to lift all of the sanctions to the importation of Serbian products. The Constitutional Tribunal gave a green light to have a new government without celebrating elections. After March 25th, with only 51 days in power, the Prime Minister, Alvin Kurti, had fallen to a censorship after the President had done away with the Minister of Interior, who supported a proposal to decree a state of emergency due to COVID-19. All of this came after pressures by Washington, who was an ally of Kosovo. Washington did not like the position of the previous president. Let's go over our digital press. For example, what does Prensa Latina say? It says optimism in Serbia with the new government in Kosovo. The formation of a new government in Kosovo after several months was received in Serbia with optimism regarding the future negotiations. The first meeting of the cabinet of the 16 minister and 4 vice ministers of the executive branch, Abdu Hoti, 44 years old, professor of economy, exposed his objectives. Belgrade reacted to these announcements with Mark Djurk, director of the Office of Kosovo and Metja of the government, and Milovan Dukin, president of the Commission of Kosovo in the National Assembly. What they want to do is do away with some sanctions that they had, and there is a demand of being recognized as an independent country. They also want to be independent and not have any impediments with the vehicles of administrative limits. However, they are doubtful because there are many promises made that are never fulfilled. Another one is Europe Press. June 6 says Kosovo eliminates the commercial barriers with Serbia a couple of days before a conversation with Belgrade. The government of Kosovo has announced on Saturday the lifting of all commercial barriers with Serbia 3 days after the beginning the conversations of the normalization with Pristina and Belgrade to resolve the conflict open for 10 years. The commercial relationship have always been tense among both and were paralyzed ever since November 2018 when the then Kosovar Prime Minister Ramush Haradinaj imposed additional restrictions over the government of Serbia to delegitimize the status of independence of Kosovo. We hope that Serbia puts an end to this campaign and has deposited all of his trust of the European allies and the United States to convince them of the Serbian government. And speaking of United States, there is a very interesting article published by Sputnik, and it's called Trump Wins the Bet on Kosovo, written by Luis Rivas.
The United States can say they're victorious if Serbia, the former province of Kosovo, reach an agreement Donald Trump expects to have before the November elections. A victory in the Balkan system. Washington, through their special envoy, Richard Grenell, has months in a plan that will solve the conflict between Serbia and Kosovo. This agreement would imply exchange of territories that would also impose the changing of the minority of Serbia and Kosovo and doing away with some previous ideas that they had. They hope that this model could be imitated by other European countries. To make the plan faster, the United States has invited the White House, the president of Kosovo, Hashim Taki, and the Serbian president, Aleksandar Vučić. Tashi, a former commander of the guerrilla of Kosovo, had already launched an idea of correction of the frontiers in 2018. United States doesn't like Kurti and prefers to negotiate with Taksi the steps to carry out the steps with the Serbia-Vucic, the concretion of this pact, eliminating the obstacle of Kirti. The agreement among Serbians and Kosovars seems to be more closer. The new president has tried to tranquilize most of the population and the opposition, saying that there will be no exchange of territories. The normalization, the relationship with Serbia, who has never recognized the independence of Kosovo, would open the step for Pristina towards the UN and other organisms that are now vetoed. President Tassi, once he had received the approval of Trump and recognized as the interlocutor between the Serbian, keeps on pressing for European Union, and they demand Brussels to give them visas and denies to meet with the representative of this other country. Serbia, who is the more firm alliance with Russia in the zone, expects that their poster helps to lift obstacles to be admitted in the European Union, although this is not the best time to see if this is possible. With the door of the European Union semi-closed, Serbia prefers to play the card of Trump, although this means going to war with a former ally. These are the ideas. Let's go to our first pause. Remember that we also have a question of the day, so you can also have an opinion. And this is the question. After having a new government in Kosovo, the United States is trying to maintain a dialogue between the self-proclaimed Republic of Serbia, who wins and who loses with a virtual pact among these Balkan territories. Give us your opinion. Let's go to our pause. We'll be right back. Let's see how the self-proclaimed of Kosovo has been the apple of distent in the problem with Serbia. And this has gone on for 20 years after NATO had bombarded the cities of the then Yugoslavia in 1999. It's time to remember this. When in February 2008, against all of legal process established by United Nations, the Parliament of Kosovo proclaimed themselves as independent, the tensions grew with Serbia. 20 years later, Serbia says that Kosovo is their province, and there are not few the countries that support this posture. Among those, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, China, Greece, India, and South Africa. However, 100 of 193 members of United Nations do recognize the independence of this small territory of less than 2 million people. The conflict is still ongoing and the tensions are irregular. The people say that the both governments are immersed in their myths and not in the reality, so this is why they can't get together and dialogue. In 2012, there was a process of dialogue between the government of Kosovo and Serbia to promote getting closer. In 2013, Serbia and Kosovo accepted to start dialogue with the mediation of the European Union. But there have been few results. The conversations are frozen ever since a year ago when the government of Kosovo imposed taxes to 100% on the products that came from Serbia. In April of last year, both governments accepted to sit down at the table once again that was held in Berlin. This This meeting was auspiced by President of France and Germany. One of the possible solutions could be the exchange of territories. Kosovo would give Belgrade the northern part that is of Serbia, and on the contrary, they would give the southern part of their territory. But how about if we locate where is Kosovo? That's the object of our analysis today. Kosovo, key piece in the Balkans. The Republic of Kosovo, that used to be part of Yugoslavia, is a nation with international recognition. It is located at the heart of the Balkanic region. It has a surface of 10,908 square kilometers, and the capital is Pristina. Their border countries are Montenegro, Serbia. The government of Kosovo unilaterally declared their independence on February 17, 2018, with the support of many of the countries of the European Union and the United States. However, Serbia still considers Kosovo part of a region within their own territory. When the War of Kosovo ended, the government was left in the hands of NATO and of the mission of administration of United Nations. Serbia, Russia, and China, and most of the countries of America, Asia, and Africa do not accept the unilateral independence declaration and do not recognize Kosovo as independent. Although they don't have a direct access to the sea, it is crossed by many rivers. One of them is the White Rin that goes to the Adriatic Seas, while two other are affluents of the Danube. All of these geographic characteristics make it a very fertile territory with 71% that is ready for agriculture. However, many of the industrial and mineralization has been contaminated, and this does not let the agriculture flourish. Kosovo is one of the poorest countries in Europe. For 2015, it had a GDP of 6,500 euros. The unemployment rate goes from 30 to 35%. The industrial and electric systems are very weak, and all of the money that comes from the immigrants is a very important part of their income. Kosovo has a free trade agreement with all of the Balkan countries. Serbia, Macedonia, Germany, Turkey are their main allies. In parallel, the corruption and many of the corruption mail, that commerce with cement, cigarettes, and gasoline have concerned them a lot, especially to the United Nations that has gone straight forward in the fight against corruption in this country. This is a very complex zone, as well as geopolitically strategic. Let's begin with our analysis. We have Miguel Jaimes. He's a master in political science. How are you, Professor? Hello, friends of Telesur. Can you help us understand how the self-proclaimed nation of Kosovo, and where we see that the United States has some influence, and what they're trying to do is that Serbia and Kosovo sit at the table to negotiate? Why? Well, first of all, let's not forget that Kosovo was part of the Great Yugoslavia. And in that area, once there was a fragmentation, and after the war of 1991, due to strategic moves that were conceived on behalf of many countries, the war was very violent. And those who say that this is a territory of a white race, of pure, and this has created a great rejection. And the United States bet everything to balkanize the former Yugoslavia, for everybody. And immediately had influence of the United States with those who were able to support. And they installed a military base there. Let's not forget that this is a region that has very important resources, even petroleum. And in the midst of this is Kosovo, a region that is very small, of almost 11,000 square kilometers. It doesn't have any access to the sea, and this makes it very complicated, the relation of the defense system. It is just recognized by 90 cities of 190 United Nations. And Kosovo is impeded to get near the Russian Federation. And there might be some racial tensions in this place. Thank you, Doctor. Let's add to our dialogue the journalist, Roberto Mero, who is with us from France. Roberto, how are you? Dr. Jaime said that Kosovo is a small portion of what formerly was Serbia. However, in this small portion, there's a concentration of the culture of Serbia. Is this the only or main reason why the government of Serbia is flirting to sit down at the table and this way legitimize us? Well, here we have a problem that is much more extensive of just Kosovo, and it has to do with the irregular formation. And this goes back to the time of the Turkish and Ottoman Empire occupation. And that after the First World War, they had a general dispersion that meant what was later called balkanization. Kosovo in itself does not exist. It is just a part of what Serbia is.
Sí, como no, lo escucho perfectamente, lo escucho. Sí, porque tenemos un problema hoy de comunicación. Entonces, esto formaba parte, digamos,
this was part.
Sí. Esto formaba parte de
This
Serbia.
was part of Serbia. So, it just happens to be that it was occupied, let's not forget, by a force, a guerrilla force that wanted the independence of Kosovo under the umbrella of the European Union and the United States. What for? So they could have some to drive a knife into Russia that would put under control the Serbian government. So now we have the results. They're almost obscene of what the war in Yugoslavia meant and the bombardment on behalf of NATO. Although Kosovo belonged to Serbia and it is said to be an independent Kosovo, there is nothing more than just a colony that is designated by NATO and the United Nations so they can control the Balkans. This is the conclusion. And in terms of Serbia, just like some years ago it was said, the foreign minister of Serbia, it is not possible. Serbia can never recognize Kosovo because it would be doing themselves a political harakiri. The thing is that Europe and United States blackmail Serbia with trying to enter Serbia in the European Union.
No va a existir entrada de Serbia en la Unión Europea. Es más todavía, el chantaje final
the final blackmail of this, that is almost a coup d'etat that has been produced in this June, where a prime minister, is kicked out of the way with a maneuver. And what it does is to confirm the state of colony that Kosovo still has. Thank you, Roberto. And right now I would like to ask Dr. Jaimes, who moves the strings in the policy in Kosovo, and by extension in Serbia? Well, first of all, the European Union, NATO, with a quota that they have been offered. The thing is that North America is trying to elevate the Balkanization model of that disaster as a control model. To that is what many people are aspiring to in the Pentagon. And this against to what this idea of state-nation has been. But this has been a way of controlling several sectors of the world. And what they do is elevate a national sentiment and expose them to the conflict. Kosovo is still an experiment for the ultra-left movements. Behind them, there's a tension of others who are also trying to generate new conflicts. There are sectors of Europe, of the European community, who still want that there be a conflict in this area. Above all, because of their political tradition of the right wing. So, what they're always trying to do is to asphyxiate this situation. How do they do it in other regions? How do they do it with other countries? Well, they don't do it because there are other factors. However, Kosovo is the scenery of war. There were many massacres, confrontations. They were very violent. And above all, the world had the possibility to believe in a new type of soldier, in a new nationalism that is very much combined with other types of models. We can even say they are neo-Nazis, and this is in the benefit of the United States and NATO. Thank you, Doctor. Roberto, when we're speaking of nationalism and neo-Nazi waves and extreme protectionism, I can only recall the figure of Donald Trump. This is perfect for him in this situation between Serbia and Kosovo. Well, I think that goes beyond Trump. Of course, Trump has ideological agreements with the most reactive sector in Kosovo, not with the nationalist movement. This is a mercenary sector where you see that the guerrillas, always among quotes, these so-called guerrilla men used the policy of infiltration in Albania to use the final card of self-determination of the peoples. This was nothing more than a political makeup. As the professor just said, here there is an element of grief of the European Union of trying to look for a zone of conflict where they can use revenge, both racially, political, to have it in a very conflictive zone. But what happens nowadays? Well, Kosovo is the counterpart of what happened in Catalonia. On one hand, you have that the government of the European Union does not recognize the independence of Catalonia or their desire of independence of the Catalan people. And when there was a war, a dirty war against Serbia to try to have an existence of Kosovo. This is a massacres, genocide, racial cleansing, and they were kicking them out of Kosovo. They used mercenaries that were later paid with drug trafficking and with an array of illicit work with prostitution, trafficking of drug, people. United States and Trump are seeking to get out. But although this is perfect for Washington, why? Because the United States has lost a step in Ukraine. What happened in Ukraine was wet gunpowder because nothing happened. And Putin established very well what were the coordinates of Ukraine. And they used it against Russia. And let's not forget, and that the United States lost the war against Daesh in Syria, and that Russia won that war. In this moment, what they're trying to do is to put influence on the Serbians who are pro-Russian. And there's an alliance with Russia, so they can obligate Serbia to recognize Kosovo. So what they would have to do is to recognize the invasion of their own country. And as proof of this, and in this Trump has it perfect, is that the Serbians has not recognized Kosovo, regardless of the international blackmail. But Serbia has just signed an agreement with the European Economic Union that is led by the Chinese and the Russians. So they really don't know what to do with Kosovo, because Europe does not want to recognize Kosovo in this stage, because there would be all of the movements, all of the national movements of ultra-right would be revealed. And the part that is the Netherlands part of Belgium wants to divide it in two. What's going to happen with the Kosovan nationalists? What's going to happen with Catalonia? What's going to happen with the north of Italy, where the North League asks and demands from many years ago the separation of North Italy to the south part? So, I want to finish with this. Trump tries to fix something that is not fixable. That is why the coup d'etat that was just masqueraded in Kosovo in the last days. And they do it because they are fighting among each other within Kosovo, because nobody recognized them. Let's not forget that the majority of the governments do not recognize Kosovo. And this provokes a very huge problem. And during the war in Yugoslavia, is no longer fashionable. Thank you very much, Roberto. I would like to thank both of my guests for your time to Critical Moves. Let's go to a new pause, and let's recall that we have the question of the day, which is, after having a new government in Kosovo, the United States is striving to have a dialogue between the self-proclaimed Republic of Serbia. Who's going to win and who's going to lose if there's a pact between these two countries? Give us your opinion. We'll be right back. Regardless that they don't have any criteria, and being the less region of development in the Balkans, they have had a pivotal role throughout the history. Let's see the context. The peninsula of the Balkans, that is made of Bosnia, Croatia, Macedonia, Serbia, and Kosovo, has a geostrategic location as the door to the Middle East and Africa, and to Europe on the other hand. In the zone, you can see two big groups. One is the state members of the European Union, where they receive funds, Croatia, Bulgaria, and Greece, and the other countries who want to become part of it, like Montenegro, Serbia, Kosovo, Macedonia, and Albania. This peninsula has great influence in the Turkish economy. It is basic because of the volume of their investments. For many years, China has been very active in this area. They have had investments in the metal infrastructure and electricity projects. This is going to be a new battle of influence that worries the European Union. Since the Balkan seems a door to Europe, there's a very important space in the route that China is trying to foster for their exportations. For 2007-2018, the European Union has 70% of the investments in Serbia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, Kosovo, according to the European Commission. Kosovo, as part of the region, has ever since 2013 a pact of free trade with Bosnia, Moldavia, and Macedonia. This last one is their main commercial ally after Germany and Turkey. In the geopolitical realm, the war in Kosovo has been part of a geopolitical strategy. The dialogue to normalize the relationship with Serbia are something pending in the international realm, as well as their integration to the European Union. Let's go to the second moment of our analysis. For that, we have Iñaki San Vicente. Thank you, Iñaki, for being with us. Iñaki, to see if we open up a little bit of this. The European Union doesn't want Kosovo to become a legitimate republic. However, they participate with the United States in fostering dialogues between Serbia and Kosovo. Well, the European Union is literally in problems now. There's a part of the European Union who is not interested in what has just been commented, and there's another part of the European Union who is interested. While the Brexit has not finished breaking, This is the case of Great Britain as an agent of the United States who is interested in Kosovo keep on being what it is. And it's just a land, a landing strip for United States. There is another part for European Union that is interested in strengthening the right-wing political parties and helping Poland and Hungary. And there's another part who wants to come into the European Union, just like Turkey, who is interested in Kosovo and Albania, and Kosovo and Serbia be a great power, because this would increase the influence in Turkey within the European Union or in the zone in itself. I think we should clarify this, because normally we are just led by the interpretation of the European Union as if it was a unified bloc, which it is not. Right now, they are trying to find a union that honors its name. But wherever you see it from, it's not free to do so. The case of the Balkans is one of the major weaknesses of the European Union. And the United States, aware of all this, has provoked a soft blow with many threats, because let's not forget that the son of Donald Trump had insinuated in Kosovo that if you don't withdraw that government and put a new one in, the United States would not support them, and it would let Kosovo's economy drown. Then the United States has supported the current president, because the government of Kurti was going to investigate the corruption, and it was going to be, all of the corruption was going to be revealed. And this would lead to a situation that would become more generalized. I'm sorry, what I want to say is that the current president was investigating a very rigorous corruption of the previous government. And here we see that the current prime minister is responsible for the corruption. And the justice of Kosovo was going to process Tasi, but this was not accepted, because if Tasi failed, there would be no space for the counterpart. Well, keeping this in mind, the United States has forced a soft coup d'etat. They have not made elections. They have impeded the elections because they should have been carried out to change the president. They have created a situation of tension, and they have put a totally new person there. As we said before, the United States has put a step forward to this meeting that was going to be held the European Union in Brussels with the governments in the Balkans. The United States has put a step forward, and they see that the European Union is slow and broken. So in this situation, the United States has taken a part, a big slice. Well, it's true that the Balkan Peninsula has not been able to overcome on its own. We see how many countries, as we said in our program, many countries are focusing on the European Union
a la Unión Europea y sobre la base de la cual la propia Unión Europea como Estados Unidos le está
And in
chantajeando,
fact, the European Union is blackmailing them so they can sit down at the table with Kosovo. But it's also true that this region is geostrategic. So therefore, countries like Russia and China are interested so they can reach the subcontinent of Russia. How can these powers see a possible alliance between Kosovo and Serbia? Well, if there were a unity among all of this, there would be nothing that could be done to stop the step of Turkey, China, and Russia. It would be seen as a strengthening.
Entre Estados Unidos y esa parte de Europa dirigida por Alemania, por Euroalemania, por Francia, por Italia, etcétera, y sobre todo por el norte de Europa, por la Europa rica, digámoslo así, lo verían como una especie de necesidad
as a need that they reach an agreement between Kosovo and Serbia so they could stop the advancement and everything that has been legitimized by the participation of Russia and China. But this, for me, I don't think it's so important because, one, the United States is not going to stop in their intentions. And two, they will not stop in their intention to insert little by little. And the government of Serbia has taken the government with the 55% of the government support. That's how she got to the government. Serbia, in 2019, they have grown in the GDP. In 2018, they had a 4-point comma increase. This means a lot. This means that their economy has been touched by the Kosovan decision of cutting commercial relationship. However, the economy has been maintained. And here there is a central factor, which is that the Church of Serbia has said that Kosovo is a very important part to consolidate the area. So it's very hard that Serbia will bend its head. The president is very intelligent, and he is studying Russian because he wants to maintain the relationship with Russia. He's a friend of Putin, and that sector is very much closer to Merkel than to Trump. So they would be in conditions of moving in a very agile way to avoid what could be a second move of Donald Trump. If Donald Trump, with the support of the European Union, is able to have a foot in Serbia with the promise of solving tensions, then soon after they will do what they will do is to take over this place. Let's not forget that the United States is going against the Serbian president and has tried to create tensions within Serbia. So at one point, if everything continues this way, they would force a situation of tension within Serbia. The United States knows and Russia is not interested in having a tension there because Russia is very much pressured from the Arctic Ocean on the top all the way to the Black Ocean.
por encima de Japón y en Siberia y en el Mediterráneo, ¿no? Y no le interesa que haya
and they are not interested that there be any tension situation.
La extensión de la OTAN a Polonia, ¿no? Entonces,
So,
la reacción de Serbia,
the reaction of Serbia could be for some time to promise and to learn what's going to happen in the elections in the United States and what's going to be the evolution of Russia in all of this. There are many other elements at play, but everything will be solved and everything that is left of this year. But of course, Serbia is aligned with the policy of the United States. Ever since the United States tried to seek peace. Thank you very much, Iñaki. Thank you. See you soon. Let's go to our conclusions. After reactivating the dialogue mechanisms, the president of Kosovo is on the thin line. If they accept the proposal of the United States to sit at the table with Kosovo, they would legitimize it and thus open the door to international government. And why the United States is so interested in this dialogue? What repercussion will it have in the upcoming elections? Moscow and Beijing are alert of every movement, while NATO is just washing their hands. And European Union should better unite, or something bad would come. Meanwhile, it's important to see what's going on in this hinge between Europe and Middle East. This is all for today. Thank you.